and we want the fans out of their seat. We want to score goals. We want to get them, momentum on our side, and then on the flip side is when we don't have the ball is we got to be dogs. We got to be dogs about the ball, and it can't be one or two dogs. It's got to be.
We're live. Oh boy, somehow that did not cut off correctly. But hey, we need dogs. Welcome everybody to the Afterburn Soccer Show. Oh, and here he comes. Here comes Jose. Oh man, looking good in high def. And we're all here today. We're glad to welcome back as well Collin, Mr. Coovert. You can find him at Mr. Coovert on Twitter. Our good friend, longtime friend Ismael Belkoura, who has multiple Twitter handles. I always get confused which one do you prefer for soccer related content, Ismael?
Let's go with the Ishi one.
Ishi, Plano, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, Jose Carmona at El Chico Carmona. We're here to talk.
What's up, everybody?
FC Dallas soccer over what has been definitely like the craziest offseason that none of us could have predicted. After a coaching change, a new coach steps in, and really the front office, Andre Zanotta in particular, went to work. What a offseason that, again, a few of us had in our cards. And so we're here to talk about it. We're here to talk about what it means. We're here to talk about that new coach and what he's saying. You heard him at the beginning of the show there talking about he wants 11 dogs on the field for FC Dallas. And we're going to talk about Lucho Acosta, probably the biggest attacking player acquisition since Petar Musa, but really even maybe at another level than Petar Musa as far as his ability to create. So we have several things we're going to get into. We're going to hear from these guys. And of course, we appreciate everybody who's going to share and follow in or listen to the podcast later. We'll, of course, post it wherever you find podcasts. But if you're watching on YouTube, you can send in your comments and questions and shape the direction of the show this evening. But let's get right into it. We're going to start with just this question about storylines. And Jose, we'll start with you. But, all of this happened in the offseason for FC Dallas. New head coach, huge profile departures, Jesus Ferreira, to name one, Paul Arriola, and Nkosi Tafari, maybe Ilar Mendy, that we may have to put a little a ... to be decided on that one, but then huge incoming player signings, including Lucho Acosta, Anderson Julio, Ramiro Benetti, some great signing, a record signing, and a center back, and Ozase, a new retooled offensive approach. So what's the storyline and all of that of this offseason for each of you? So Jose, we'll start with you. What's the storyline of this offseason for FC Dallas?
It's optimism. I mean, look at how we finished the season. I mean, we were all down. We were all like, man, what are we going to do? We're locked into this roster. There's very little wiggle room. I mean, that was like the consensus. I'm not saying everybody bought into it, but the majority of the FCD fan base, we're not too excited about heading into the season because we thought we really had limited options. We didn't know that Zanotta was going to basically tear up the roster and start, cleaning house. Nobody envisioned that. I mean, we all wished it. We all said, it would be great if we could do it. And really, I mean, the excitement right now, I think, is at a level that none of us expected. I'm not saying it's the greatest excitement ever, but with the Acosta signing, thanks to that new rule that happens to benefit, teams that like to sell, and no team sells better than FC Dallas. And that rule is tailor-made for a team like FC Dallas. Seeing them basically take advantage of it by going out and getting Acosta, it's exciting. I'm excited. I'm not saying we're, going to win MLS Cup, but I am hoping to someday that'll happen, maybe this year. But we've gone from, hey, we've got a cellar dwelling contender, spoon contender, to now we are really, honestly, with the addition of Acosta, we've got to be seen as a dark horse, because I don't think teams know if this team is going to sink, or ride the tide of excitement, that a player like Acosta can provide. So
All
I'll let
right.
somebody else carry on. I'm being too
Ishmael,
excited.
your thoughts. What's the storyline of the season, of this off season for you so far?
I think that the main storyline, that's definitely going under, maybe not under the radar, but Lucho and the the overhaul of the roster is getting most of the limelight. I feel like under all of this, we are maybe not forgetting, but this is going to be a very interesting season for Eric Quill. I remember how we were talking about when we were all thinking about this new coach coming in, how not only was it going to be the start of a project for the team, but it was going to be the start of effectively Eric Quill's like chance. He's been talked about this being the Texan to represent this team, someone who has connections with the Hunts, not just as a coach but as a player who's had success in North Texas SC before, who's done it at academy level, who did it pretty well at USL championship level. He's the kind of coach that in the U.S. soccer pyramid we should want to see get these kinds of chances, and they rarely do. I
Agree.
mean, like, say what you want about some of the great coaches in this league, but a lot of them, most of them, don't come from the USL. Most of them don't come from coaching in the academy and then being successful. I mean, FC Dallas is one of the few to actually do that with Oscar, with Lucci, and now in a different way with Eric Quill. And I think that, I mean, we are all kind of hoping that Eric Quill kind of coaches at the level that Oscar does over the level that Lucci does, but on like a more broad like question is kind of how is he going to do? We kind of think we know how he's going to play, but this is a different level. These are brand new players that most of them have never played together. How is this going to look? And I'm kind of excited because again, given the signings that we've made and the team that we've built and Eric Quill's coaching style, this team may not be amazing from the get or even great, but they're going to be exciting. They're going to be attacking. They're going to be fun. And I don't know. I don't remember the last time I could call an FC Dallas team fun. It's been a while.
Wow. I mean, it was fun if you like back passes over these past few years, But yeah, you're right. I think you make a point there. Colin, let's round it out with you. What's the story of this offseason from your vantage point for FC Dallas?
Man, it's gonna be change for me. I mean, we got a lot of changes at the club. We technically Zanata got like this secret promotion, so like he's not technical director, but like a spot up. So there's technically someone underneath him that we're kind of. I mean, his name's out there, but it's escaping me right now. But we got two people working on transfers now. We're still getting some of our, European scouting from Enzo. So, and that's been evident in some of this outside of the U.S. Transfers like Ramiro and Patrickson last year. I heard he had to deal with some of that too. So it's one of those things where a lot of change happening at the club that we haven't seen in the past 2 or 3 years. Um, the biggest thing I hear from every Dallas fan and even people that cover the team is the Hunts don't spend. Well, over the past 2 seasons, I think 2.5, 3 seasons, 6 transfer windows, we're in the top 8 in spending, like net spending in MLS. Not just, like selling and spending, like spending in MLS as a whole, we're in the top 8. That's different. We're bringing an attacking style of soccer in play. That's different. With Lucci and with Nico, it's been very defensive, technical, pass around the back, take your opportunities when they come, play the long game, play possession. Now you see it's a lot of transition, a lot of kind of, just vibes in the midfield, press the back line, balls in behind. You won't hear me screaming 18 times a match, Moose's in and behind, play the ball over the top anymore. It's a lot of change. We're bringing in MLS MVP quality players like Lucho Acosta. We're bringing in actual pacey, decently technical wingers like Julio, Leo Chu. We are changing positions for some players. Farrington's playing on the right a little bit. Leget's dropping deeper a little bit, almost into like a defensive 8 role that can push up when need to. Man, it's change. And like Ishmael touched on, it's the one of the rare times we see someone take the advantage of academy to USL League One, where he won a championship in North Texas first, then USL championship. Now he's getting his chance in the MLS like he deserves, and dog mentality. Past couple of years, I'm a very defensive-minded coach myself from my U16s, and I love a 4-2-3-1 where my second DM can push up the field. And man, when I see Quill playing and coaching, it's exactly what I want from my teams. And if it goes the same way that I see my teams play at a professional level with that juice and the smarts of the game like Quill has, I'm excited for it, man. Watching that preseason game against Houston was exciting. Against Atlanta, when we didn't necessarily have our strongest 11 for more than 30 minutes, was exciting. Were we winning? No, but it was exciting, fun, and the connectivity and everything is going to come with time. And man, Lucho, you heard it here first. Lucho and Musa are going to combine for 50 goals between the both of them.
Right.
I'm saying it right here, right now.
You heard it here first.
Fire, man.
That's great. I mean, and really, I think, there are so many storylines to tease out of this offseason. But yes, the willingness or whatever shift happened in the front office, whether it was just an honest conversation with everyone from Dan Hunt, Clark Hunt, to Andre, to all support staff, just saying, Lucci and with Nico, we tried to embrace a particular style that we thought was going to work. Hey, it's not working. And even with Peter Luxon, who I think we all agree did what he could do to dampen a fire, put out a fire that he inherited last season. But even then, there was something about it that they still looked for something else. And so the fact that they were willing just to say, it's not just the coach, but we need to retool this roster and be open to any offer that comes in to help us open the door to the kinds of players we need to make that vision come alive. And if there is one thing I think you can criticize front office for with the way they worked with Lucci and Nico, is that maybe either they tried or they weren't able to do it, or they weren't able to give those coaches kind of the right players to pull off that vision. And so it seems like going with Quill is a guy that they love, will have a lot of connection with. They're saying, look, we've got to go in on all of this to make it work, as well as I think some of these offers that came in were just the right time to make a kind of a deal. I mean, Jesus and Paul, had been good servants, amazing players for this club, but yet, hey, can you refuse those deals when they come? You try to make it happen. So many interesting storylines and interesting to see how it's going to come out. Let's go ahead and stay with the Quill thread. Here is his little clip from the preseason conference, which I just think I've enjoyed his energy. Of course, we're going to see how his coaching experience translates to Major League Soccer. But here is that full statement we sort of opened the show with.
Off of turnovers. We want to be aggressive getting a goal. We could, I'd like to score within 2 passes. And so that takes, in order to do that, it's not just traveling with 1 or 2 players, it's traveling with the entire unit. So getting them to understand as we transition in the game, it's the back half has to be at full velocity along with the front half. Because as you know, when you don't convert, ball pops out. If you're stretched, your lines are stretched. You turn yourself into a disorganized, group that will concede on the back end. So we're trying to get them to understand transitions happen as a team. They don't happen with the front 4. But the aggressiveness to play forward, even if it means giving the ball back to the opponent, because there's big pockets when opponents turn the ball over. That's when they're most opened up. And so we want to be able to exploit, their shape quickly, and we want the fans out of their seat. We want to score goals. We want to get them, momentum on our side, and then on the flip side is when we don't have the ball is a we got to be dogs. We got to be dogs about the ball, and it can't be one or two dogs. It's got to be 11 thinking alike and physically giving their everything of themselves to each play, not taking plays off. That's what I talked about. 95 plus is you can't go 65% when it's a 100% moment.
He wants 11 dogs on the field. Collin, you watch this team a lot. You're there at the stadium a lot. You're blowing your voice out sometimes, rooting this squad on. What does that mean to you? What does that kind of language speak to you? Speak to the depths of your soul as an FC Dallas soccer fan?
Man, it means everything as an FC Dallas fan. Like this is what I've wanted for a long time. You look at 2015 to 2016 with Oscar Pereira. Those guys necessarily weren't the best. I mean, you look at Maxi Urruti, wasn't the best striker. You look at Santi Mosquera, wasn't the best winger. You look at Hernan Grana, right back. I believe he was there at that time. Wasn't the greatest right back, but they were dogs and they fought, and that is what ultimately won us so many games, especially when it came to playoffs. Like that game against Seattle at home in 2015 when we were making that MLS Cup run. We honestly did not deserve to win that series. We played okay-ish in the first leg, but that second leg at home, we fought and fought and fought like dogs, and it won us multiple games. The dog mentality kind of came out with Lucho a little bit towards the end of his tenure. Whenever they started fighting, we didn't win games, but they started to fight and fight and fight, and they tried to keep him his job, and ultimately wasn't more successful. When this team and this club has fought like dogs, it has brought not only entertaining soccer or football, but it has also brought passion for the fan base. And FC Dallas has only grown as a fan base these past couple of years, even with us slowly declining a little bit. So you have passionate fans. You're going to have a passionate team. That could propel a team pretty far. The last time I can see that happening was in my CFC. Look at that team that won MLS Cup. Not technically the best on paper, but their fan base that showed up were passionate. The team that fought on the field were dogs. So it's one of those things, maybe we make a big, huge turnaround. That's what I'm hoping for, and that's what I see. And with the group mentality, I can see us being a very dangerous team, both physically and technically, on the pitch this season.
Ismael, what does that language speak to you tactically as you think about maybe how this might be a contrast this year for how Quill lines this team up?
Well, first off, I take exception to Colin saying Hernan Grana is only okay or good. That is MLS All-Star Hernan Grana.
That's
Like
correct.
that guy made that All-Star game. I think my main thing is, well, I think Colin touched a lot about it. Like the whole thing about, y'all remember back in 2015, 2016 when it was all about the homegrowns, right? Do y'all remember that game? I think it was against SKC where we won 3-0 with just a bunch of homegrowns.
Yes,
Like, we
sir.
have no business winning that kind of game. But the whole point of the style that Oscar plays, and it's something that he's kept consistently through Tijuana and into Orlando, is those players fight. Those players are tough players. And I mean, look at the kind of attackers that Oscar had in Orlando with Daryl Dike and Duncan McGuire. Those are players that now MLS fans know are fighters, are dogs. And it doesn't mean that you can only be good playing that kind of style, right? We all know that a team like Columbus was incredible that year with that first year with Wilfred Nancy. But the best versions of this team were fighters, and it doesn't just go back to Oscar. It goes back to that Chels Hyman team that made it all the way to MLS Cup. That team was weak in almost every aspect except David Ferreira. But that team fought. That team had spirit. That team had energy. And I think that I mean, a lot of these new players that we've put onto this team seem to show that. Again, you don't know until you see it on the field, right? And preseason doesn't mean too much. So maybe a couple players aren't to that extent, but I don't know. I see the highlights of Ozase or Hogide, and that guy just seems to just tear through attackers. Even when it means he has to step up to the halfway line to like intercept a ball, he just fights. Abubakar,
Mhm.
again, not the greatest player. We've seen him play in Colorado, but one of the things that we know and we've seen consistently, even when he was playing for Columbus, he fights. He's aggressive. Um, Now that has to be channeled, right? It can't just be like running around willy nilly. But that's what Eric Quill is good at. That's what he did with North Texas. That's what he did in that New Mexico series where they went where they won, where they got the most points in the league that year. It's these players that just fight. So if Quill is able to do it a third time with a third team, we're going to see success. So
Mhm.
that's maybe I'm simplifying it, but that's how I view it.
Jose,
100%.
thoughts on
Well,
dogs?
I think you're seeing a complete massive tactic switch. I mean, Ishmael was talking about how uh, under, I think you said under Nico, where the guys were fighting, but you know they weren't getting results. That had a lot to do with they were set up to play very defensively. So yes, they were fighting, but the formations and the tactics had set them up for failure. You had a team that was basically trying to be defense, 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 and then when they needed to score, they just couldn't. And you're seeing right now with the kind of players that Quill is getting and the tactics that we know he's employed in the past and we expect to employ uh, here in FCD. That's not going to be the case. This is not going to be a strictly defend for 90 minutes, hope to get a 1-0 win type team. This is a team that's going to take its chances. Like you said with Pareja, sure they would they would defend, but they would strike quickly when they could, and you're going to see a return to that. Although I think it's going to be more of a hybrid. Don't forget that under Quill, North Texas was their offense was known for all their passing they did. They had their attack was the death by 1,000 passes, and so I think you're going to see a hybrid version of that of what Pareja did, and a lot more technical passing, like he said, with more urgency. They're going to pass when they need to pass, when they need to try to. There's teams they're gonna play. Park the bus and Vancouver, those teams. So you're gonna have to break those guys down, and that's Quill has shown in the past that his teams can do that. So I think you're going to see a hybrid team that will pass when it needs to pass around, but will strike quickly whenever it gets a chance. And I think that's very exciting for us. So like you said, we're not going to be the best team in MLS, but we may be one of the more exciting teams. I mean, the Acosta Musa pairing right now. I mean, that's exciting waiting to happen anytime those two guys are together. And let's not sleep on Julio, who has looked tremendous so far. I mean those three right there alone, and once we figure out who the other winger is going to be, that's excitement, excitement, excitement. And I don't think I've seen the fan base this excited about a season in a while.
It's good stuff, and this mentality shift. Sometimes it's like you hear coaches talk, and I don't think there's any coach that's going to say, "Oh, I want our guys to take a break between plays or something." No coach is going to say that. They want guys to be locked in and aggressive. So there's something that Quildo is doing here of trying to set that expectation, even though, it's going to be a work in progress. These guys are still gelling. And really the roster turnover is not done yet. I mean, I think there's still some moves that are going to be made. Maybe Ilara Mendy. There's been rumors about Hassani Dotson maybe coming into this team. So there's still maybe some pieces that get shifted around, a guy or two that may go out on loan as things sort of as Saturday approaches and things get settled in. But one of the things I think what Quill is doing that's great here is that he's subtly also sending a signal to the guys that, like last season especially, FC Dallas was simply not good enough at home. And you're not going to win anything in this league if you can't win games at home. If you drop points at home, it's hard to get them on the road. And so if you can't be a dog at home, if you can't defend your turf and be aggressive and make life miserable for your opponent, you're already going to be digging out of a hole most of the season. So I think that's something interesting to watch for, to see how Quill can get kind of this team to be locked in at home. But let's keep the conversation going real quick right now, knowing that there's probably still a few moves happening on a classic schoolhouse lettering style from an A+ to an F, or if you want to do an incomplete, how would you all rate the offseason so far, the work overall of this offseason? Coov, how would you rate it on that scale? Oh,
My bad. I'm muted. I'm going to give it an A-. And the reason I give it an A- is because we obviously haven't seen it on the field yet. So we're all going based off of expectations going into the season, what needed to happen, and also player acquisitions in the roster. That's how I'm basing this and the effort. Like we were saying at the top of the show, no one expected us to completely demolish the roster pretty much and go all in. I believe Garrett sent out a tweet earlier talking about it, and there's an article posted on fcdallas.com about our departures and our arrivals. And it's like, I think it's something like 15 departures and 16 or 17 arrivals. And going through that list of departures, you have big names like Jesus Ferreira, Paul Arriola, Alan Velasco, 3 DPs, which we got to remember, Paul wasn't treated as a DP because he was bought down, but he's still on a DP contract. So we had 3 DPs leave the club. We had Eugene Ansa, which not a great player, but was a TAM player. You have homegrown players like Dante Seeley leaving the club, which, I mean, we're decent contract-sized players. You got these Nkosi Tafari, my brother, my boy. Happy that he's getting the respect he deserves in LA, though, and hopefully a new deal, which he deserves. And all the best to him. But, you look at these departures and you're thinking, okay, we were already a weak roster and we're getting rid of our, best pieces. And like we were saying, with Allen, you don't turn that down. That deal is an A+++, as many pluses as I could fit on a page type of deal. You take a player who has gotten only older, coming off an ACL tear, you finesse Boca Juniors out of a guaranteed $2.5 million profit, a 20 to 30% sell-on clause. I've heard 20 and I've seen 30. And then you also have incentives, which are pretty easy incentives to get for Allen's quality in the next 2 years to bump it up to another million or two. You don't say no to that. And you replace him with someone who's obviously way older, but for someone half the price and way better than Lucho Acosta. Again, those type of deals, A+++++++. The only reason they don't get an A- is we still have 1 DP spot open if you want to go to 3 DP, 3 U22 route. But then we also still have 3 U22 roster spots if you go to 2 DP, 3 U22 roster spot. Technically 4, because I'm expecting Giovanni to be put on that season-ending injury list, depending on how that goes. We'll see how that goes. But, man, overturn of the roster. We have Quill, who's not only passionate as a coach, and I mean, watching him in that preseason game against Houston, he's not afraid to get in your face. Enzo Newman was tracking back, just jogging a little bit with the ball going down his side, thinking he was covered. And Crow's literally running up the touchline, screaming in his face, Enzo, get the, back, get back. Screaming in his face, and Enzo's like, oh crap, and getting back. Quill is very much in your face, passionate, something that honestly this team's been missing for a long time. So
Agreed.
looking at everything from the top to the bottom of what we've been wanting, what we've been asking for, and what honestly the dream scenario, Dallas has it. The only reason it doesn't get an A or an A plus is because, again, the roster's still not complete. I would love for it to be complete right now, but we still have some time. I think it's April 7th or 8th when the roster window closes and solidifies. We still got some time, but the longer you wait, the longer it takes for those players to get acquitted and into the style of play and everything else too.
All right, that was very thorough there, Jose. Your grade for this offseason so far?
Well, I'm not gonna give him an A minus or anywhere near that. I'm gonna give him a C plus, and I'll tell you why it's a C plus. And I'll tell you why it's a C plus because of all the players that they've lost, they've had to replace a like for like. At the end of the day, we still have the same holes we had last year. We're still missing a center back. We're still missing a number 6. We're still missing multiple U22 initiative players. So it's a C plus at the moment. It can go up, and mind you, if some of those players, which you can argue some are better than the ones before, and so on and so forth, or are worse, we don't know. We won't know till the season starts. So to start the season, I said C plus, and mind you, we're looking at a D minus roster before the recent moves. I mean, let's face it. People were talking spoon. You don't talk spoon if you've got A or B plus type roster signing. The Acosta move could. I mean, it's a game changer, mind you. He can. If you're going to have an average team, let's say FC Dallas is a team that without Acosta would maybe break the record for draws at best. You need a difference maker. You need somebody who's going to take those draws and turn into wins, and that's what Acosta does. So let's not get carried away with that. I mean, that a difference changer, and that grade could go up if that comes to pass. But right now we're still kind of thin. We still got a lot of holes. So I would say C plus. That I think that's fair. I think we're a team that right now is probably middle of the pack with the potential to go up or go down because let's face it, we're not a very deep team, and it won't take too many injuries, specific injuries, to really hurt us without the holes that are missing being filled. So
All right.
now, as far as excitement and all that, yes, the excitement level and the work that management has done to change our fan perception of the team, absolutely, that's A plus. But the work's not done, and right now, I'm not going to give it incomplete, but I'll give him a C plus.
Ismael, your turn.
Well, I'm gonna be super positive. I know that's kind of rare for me. I know that I never had that kind of perception.
Yes.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna give it a name, and I I'm gonna almost solely base it off the fact that we have the fourth highest transfer in league history for a center back, and I'm also going to go off the fact that we signed Lucho Acosta. The first one's a bit, I guess, like surface level kind of looking at this kind of signing. Um, Again, not every single transfer works out. Uh, Knock on wood that Ozase Orogide turns out to be the star that we want him to be. It's really hard to judge a transfer like this when it's an
Yep.
unknown commodity. But again, like any kind of transfer window, if you're just analyzing how a team does with signings and selling players, it's always going to be a risk. Even if you sign someone like Lionel Messi, it's always going to be a risk. Well, maybe not Lionel Messi. If it's a player like Lucho Acosta or an Evander or a Leonardo Campana, it's always going to be a risk. So Sazio Orgide is a risk, but they're taking those risks and they're putting their money where their mouth is. That makes me happy. But again, I think that it kind of goes under the radar because of the fact that he didn't win MLS MVP last year. How good Lucho Acosta is, right? It's I mean, Jose used the word game changer. I feel like that's kind of underselling it at some level. Lucho is, in like for my worth, a top 5 player in this league. maybe even top 3. He is that good. He is that good in this league and has been that good consistently. Since maybe not his first season in DC, but by around his second or third season in DC, he was putting up the numbers to show he means business. And even after his injury last year, he still came back pretty strong. He's like I think what was the word that Eric Quilly used? He said finer with age like wine.
Yeah.
He's again. I keep saying he's just that good. I don't know. I'm not very eloquent in this way,
I think what
but
you're trying to say is he's the kind of player that can put a team on his back
he's the
and
type of
carry.
player that can put a team from being 10th place to 4th place. Like I'm being serious with that kind of jump. It's not 100% guaranteed, right? Lucho Acosta could end up having a season where he doesn't score 14 goals and has 16 assists, right? It's not guaranteed. But even if it's a 10 goal, 10 assist season, that is more productive for an attacking midfielder that we've had since not even Mauro Diaz. Mauro Diaz didn't have those numbers. It was since David Ferreira, a 10 goal, 10 assist season. That would do. And again, the last time we had a player like that with David Ferreira, we made it to MLS Cup. Again, not having that expectation, but he is that good.
I want to add that I think what Ishmael is guys like me. I came in when Pareja became coach as a fan, so I don't have the experience of having seen a player like David Ferreira and what he could do. So I think the average fan, especially newer fans to the team, don't really understand the kind of level player that Acosta is, and like, I've shown it myself. Like I said, I have expectations for him, but I can honestly say I've never seen this team with an MVP level player, and that's exciting. I mean, I don't know what I'm expecting, but all I know is the team is going to be more exciting for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's. I think you can look at it two different ways, right? That both at the same time, Lucho, at the very least, he raises the floor of this team. He's the kind of player that, hey, we're going to have opportunities. This team is going to have opportunities to score goals alongside Musa, who we know on very little service last year scored 18 goals. I mean, just incredible. But at the same time, Lucha also can raise the ceiling of this team of how good this team can be, because if they can score goals, if they can score, if they can get 2 to 3 goals a game, the defense is not going to have to be as lights out in every match, that, if they can just manage 1 goal a game, so I think that's the hope. Of course, we'll see how Lucho does in the Dallas Heat and all that kind of stuff, but it is such a big and important signing, and the fact that the front office is able to work this out, and even that this kind of moment represents a change in Major League Soccer of these internal cash transfers, which hadn't existed before. So it's exciting to see Dallas in play for a player of this caliber, and yeah, we're going to see how Quill uses him. Such an exciting signing. So let's shift on. Let's shift a little. We've already touched on Lucho and how big a deal this is and how exciting it is, and of course we're going to see how those cards get played as the season goes on. But are there other players that really benefit from this huge shift in regular guys out? Is there a homegrown player or two that has the potential to really step it up, or is there some guy already on the roster that like a Bernie Kamunga who's going to have an opportunity now to really lock down more and more minutes as the season goes on? I'm just curious what you all think about that. Ishmael, do you have someone in mind that you think in this turnover could really emerge as a lockdown player for FC Dallas?
So I'm gonna try to go with something that isn't an obvious answer, where we would say, an Anderson Julio would benefit a lot, or Bernie Kamungo would also obviously benefit a lot. I am really excited to see what Diego Garcia does this season. Mainly because I've been a fan of him for the last 2 seasons with North Texas. He's been such a great player for that team. And I mean, I think that it was Jose that touched upon it. Our midfield is, even though we have so many players, we can. I think we can describe our midfield as a little bit weak. Anyone behind Lucho Acosta, I mean, maybe Sebastian Lletget is penciled in, but aside from that, it's kind of a free for all. Maybe that's because Show and Ramiro were out for most of preseason. Maybe it's because we haven't really made a decision on who is Asier Armendi's replacement. I mean, it currently looks like it might be Siki who starts day one. It's like there's a decent sized opening there. Now you can make the argument that Diego Garcia and Sebastian Lletget playing together is not very defensive minded, but like like Colin was saying, Sebastian has been playing a lot deeper during the preseason, and Diego Garcia played better at North Texas when he was given freedom. That's why he was put on the wing a couple of times, because if he was given the ability to float a little bit, he could just do numbers. Can you imagine the forward pass progression effect it will have to have a Lucho Acosta and a Diego Garcia at 100%, like where he plays to his
Okay.
like to his ceiling? Musa will be eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single night on in Toyota Stadium. I'm hoping. I really like him. I don't think he'll start day one, maybe not even day two, but he will probably be a starter by next year. Just because of how good he is. I'm stamping that.
All right. All right. Jose, a player for you that might emerge.
So I think Ishmael beat me to the player I was going to pick. So I'm going to go a different route. I'm going to go with Nolan Norris, simply because of his versatility and the fact that he can play multiple positions, and the fact that Quill is not afraid to play young players. Yes, I expect Diego to have a phenomenal year, but I think Norris. People forget how long he's been with this team, and I think he's been here long enough that he he's ready for a breakout. He's a young player that, unlike our previous coach, youth will not be a hindrance with Quill. If you can play, if you can show him your dog, you can give him quality minutes, you'll see the field. And I think Norris is a player that has shown flashes like any young player does. And I think he's been a professional long enough and has experience with the first team that Diego doesn't. So uh, I'm very high on both players, and I'm very high on both of them being the future of this team. Being the future for this team. But I'm saying a player that I think is going to make a giant leap on your quill is for me Nolan Norris.
I mean, just based off of his yellow card record, that guy is the definition of dog. Like
Yes,
just based off of that.
yes, not going to be a hindrance. He could be brought in just to get a yellow card. Say, hey, these guys aren't fine enough. Go out there and show them how it's done. So I think Norris is a player that I think you could see make a huge leap this year.
All right.
Cool.
Collin, anything else you want to
Well,
add?
man, so my first option in Nolan Norris was taken for me by Jose. My second option in Diego Garcia was taken away by Ishmael. I'm gonna go a different route. And I'm gonna say Pedrinho, man. Like
Wow,
Pedrinho last
nice.
year with North Texas on the right wing, like you could see the technical dribbling and the closeness of the ball. And I always wanted them to like slide him into the middle, but with that 3-4-3 we played, you saw him go centrally a little bit. But with Quill, if y'all were able to watch the Atlanta United preseason game, for example, was a good example. But man, his game against Houston in the highlights, you can tell too. The 10 this year, which is going to be presumably, obviously, occupied by Lucho Acosta, barring anything happening to him, knock on wood, is going to be a free-flowing, go wherever you can to get the ball deep and progress it, go wherever you can to get the ball, period, and play in behind if you'd like. It's basically a free-flowing, go wherever you want 10 position. And Pedrinho excelled against Houston. I mean, he was tearing them apart. making Jack McGlynn look lost, making Artur, MLS veteran, look lost. Pedrinho's one of those players which, if he can get decent minutes, even as a sub role for like a Lucho Acosta or going on the wing for like a Bernie or a Julio and being able to excel, I could see him being our next like big outbound transfer. I mean, he looked completely different as a 10 than he did on the wing for North Texas last year, and I think he has the potential to be that next big selling player for FC Dallas.
Him as a super sub is going to be really interesting. Like, he's probably that player on the bench that has that X factor. He seems like the second coming of Ilsinho from Philadelphia, where he just comes onto the field and just ruins everything that was going on.
Yeah, he had such a good season last. Yeah, and he's had a good preseason by all accounts. He's certainly gotten some minutes out there to show, and I think that's great for him to show. You know, we'll see and how all that shapes out. Whether he maybe gets a little more time with North Texas at the start of the season, but I love it. I want that kind of story. I think you know, that's what we want to see FC Dallas do, and certainly like the departure of Jesus, the first DP homegrown player in league history, is part of FC Dallas' story. So you don't want them to go away from that, but be identifying that next player that they develop from within, who's gonna go on to bigger and better things. Well, we need to start wrapping the show up, so let's go ahead and shift to opening match this weekend. Dallas will travel down to Houston Dynamo in Houston for to kick things off. Obviously, an away match to start the season off. It kind of gives you a little cover as a team to say, hey, we don't have to have all pistons firing right away. We just want to go down and, you know, control. Make things interesting, come away with a draw even, we'd be happy. But of course, Houston, I've not been impressed by their roster development. They've lost some great players, haven't really replaced him yet, so there may be points to be had as they are still very, very much in flux to start the season. So let's go ahead and do predictions for this opening game of the 2025 Major League Soccer season for FC Dallas. Jose, we'll start with you this time. What's your prediction?
Oh, you're gonna start with me? All right. It's Houston. We got to get 3 against those guys. But I'm concerned that the team still isn't. Yes, it's an exciting team, but not so quite sure they've gelled to the point we'd like them to see. And I think the MLS did this team a disservice by setting them on the road to start the season first 2 matches. So I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw.
Okay, a 1-1 draw. Not bad. Safe. It's a very soccer score. All right. Coov, how about you?
Man, I'm going to go with a 2-1 win for FC Dallas on the road to Houston. I think Houston's going to get a scrappy goal. Just like they did in preseason to start off. That first goal was scrappy and unlucky. And I think that Lucho Acosta will not start but come off the bench. And Lucho Acosta off the bench at 100% against tired legs. I think he either connects with Musa or Julio and gets a goal or assist himself to win the game. And sends us into scenes in the away section. I will be there, and I would love to see that happen in Houston.
Same here. I would love that.
Ismael?
Man, we were just talking about this team being a very offensive-minded team, and we're going with these 1-1, 2-1. I'm going 4-3, y'all. FC Dallas is going to win this 4-3. Like, both teams have terrible defenses. I mean, Houston probably had a better defense before they sold their best center back to Palmeiras. So both these defenses are weak, and both of these attacks. I mean, Houston's is definitely not as strong as Dallas's, but again, I feel like we keep everyone in the league has forgotten they sold it. They bought a $12 million attacking midfielder in the middle of last season, I think, who is now finally gone a full preseason. It's going to be a 4-3 game where I'll make the prediction that Colin was saying that Lucho is going to score in the last minute after a tough 3-3 for most of the 90 minutes.
All right, I love it. I'm going to go conservative and go with the 2-2 draw. I just think it's yeah, I think both teams give up unlucky goals, but in the end, it feels like another preseason match. It feels like warming things up, and we'll see glimpses of what FC Dallas can become. So I think we'll still feel pretty good despite an uneven match, a bit rusty. But yeah, this is going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see because I hope I'm wrong. I'm hoping it's a drubbing. I'm hoping Dallas gets it going. But I hope for that for every game.
I want to add one final observation, though. I would like to point out that while people are not, being optimistic about our defense, I will add that sometimes a good offense is your best defense. Last year, teams were not scared to come at FC Dallas. They were not concerned that we would punish them. That if Ismael is right and the team goes out and scores 3-4 goals, that'll change people's approach to playing FC Dallas really fast.
100%.
And if they're afraid to come forward, then that's damn good defense for you.
Okay. Well, hey, we kicked it off. Oh, and I threw your comment up, idiotic expert. I love the handle. You should get into sports commentary, but with that handle. But
Yes.
but thank you so much. And yes, feeling good about the offseason, but one more center back would be good. We're with you on that. We hope to see this defense and some depth at the very least kind of come into play. Those outside back positions are pretty thin, and we do in the end we miss Sam Junka, who would have filled a lot of those kind of depth chart issues. He was such a versatile player, but hey, Anderson Julio was a good pickup for this team, so we'll see how that goes. We appreciate you guys.
Anderson Julio's going to have 10 goals this season. Anderson
All right.
Julio's going to have 10 goals.
And no one knows going to
Nice.
fill Sam Junko's hole. There we go.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
on for that.
great. Well, thanks, Jose. Thanks, Collin. Thanks, Ismael.
Thanks,
Of course,
guys.
we'll be posting the audio on wherever you find podcasts. We have updated the logo and stuff, so it no longer says Big D, so look for Afterburn Soccer. And we're excited about the week ahead. Look for some other media opportunities. We'll try to post some videos and things from all the commentary that's happening and practice and things as this season gets underway. It's been what an off season, but hey, it's a new day. It's a new day for FC Dallas. All right, good night, everybody.
Yes. Good night.
Night, y'all.
Bye, y'all.